Hi investigators, Mike Evans and Casey Pine from the Australian Security Academy. This week on Spy Curious, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a $7 million investigation claim and show you how it all comes together.
And we are also going to preview Andy Chambers' new book, Problem Solved, Stories from a Blind Private Eye.
Can't wait for that. And we're going to have a look at Dustin Martin's problems in the AFL and the issues around that, and the defences too, that sort of thing, if someone complains about it.
And I'm back with my awesome tip of the week, which you should hang around for because it has to do with email, which I love.
Which we all love, Casey. So really looking forward to that. We've got a very busy show for you today. We'll just let some people come on and then we'll be back with you in 30 seconds. If I can find the right intro. Okay, we're back. So g'day Jamie, g'day Renee, great to see you. Executive Vice President Renee, and great to see Jamie. I hope you're both well. All right, people, let's start off with some of the news from around Australia in relation to investigations this week. There's been some absolutely fantastic news over on LinkedIn. Absolutely all-round wonderful person and fantastic investigator, Lindsey Hilliard, has been appointed to the board of the Victorian Police Veterans Association. So well done, Lindsey. They couldn't be in better hands. That's just great to see. Good on you, and you're going to be an asset to that organisation. Over at South Australian Private Detectives, Evan has had a very busy 18-week investigation in a government site regarding child protection, and he's got a good result. So congratulations, Evan, over at SAPD, South Australian Private Detectives. Great stuff, mate. Well done.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, good to see. Coming up, we're going to have Andy Chambers' new book, and there's a picture of Andy with his best friend, me. It's all happening this week. But just before we get on with it, Quantum Corp are looking for investigators in Tasmania and in New South Wales. So get in touch with Quantum Corp, a great organisation to work for. It's a wonderful job opportunity if you're a licensed investigator. Massel Group down in Victoria are looking for a factual investigator. So get in touch with them if you're a licensed investigator in Victoria. They want to hear from you. So that's a great opportunity with Massel Group. They will take you on if you're a beginner without experience, onboard you and help you to succeed in that role. So that's a really great opportunity. Clarity Workplace Investigations down in Victoria. If you're a licensed private investigator, get in touch with them. If you're new to the game, they will onboard you, support you, and teach you about what they do. They do some amazing investigations for WorkSafe Victoria. They also do whistleblowing investigations as well. So they're just some of the opportunities that are available today. So let's go behind the scenes and have a look at a $7 million investigation. This is what it's worth. Let's have a look at what's involved with it, some of the issues around it. So find the right video. This is the evidence in a $7 million investigation matter. It's on my dining room table, and as you can see, there's over 7,000 documents there relating to all those things on the screen. Of all those documents, this is the one critical one that solved the case. The other 7,000 are just supporting, but this one, it just finishes off. How do you put all this sort of thing together? You do it with a time and event line. It's the best way to organise large quantities of evidence into chronological order so a magistrate or a lawyer or a barrister can understand it. I really like this analogy with the Lego blocks. You're taking a whole lot of mixed data, you're sorting it out, you're arranging it, you're presenting it visually, and it's all explained in your affidavit with a story linking back to your evidence. So when you've got piles of documents in boxes about the construction of a building where the worker was injured, and all of the workplace health and safety meetings that happened every day, and they're all documents in those boxes that you pulled out of the basement where the records were kept, and it's a wet basement because you had to put your gumboots on to go in there, and you've got all these documents. The time and event line is what you use to get that in chronological order. At the Australian Security Academy, our time and event line presentation, designed by the late great Mark Benedict, is the essential presentation for you to become an investigator in Australia. It tells you in that presentation, nothing can happen without a day, date, and time attached to it. So that's how you get those documents that are on that time, 7,000 of them in order. This one was created on this day, date, and time, and it is relevant because. And this one was created on this day, date, and time, and it is relevant because. And every single one of these documents has got to go in an annexure. Now, some of the documents, all right, they might be 300 pages long, so there's not going to be 7,000. G'day, Chris, good to see you, mate. There's not going to be 7,000 annexures, but some of those documents, quite a few of them, are only one page. So it's really interesting stuff, putting this together so it all makes sense. It happened on a day, date, and time is the clue to making it easy for you to make it understandable, and it makes sense for the person who has to read it. Now, this one is going in an affidavit for an interlocutory hearing, so the magistrate can see before the case arrives at court 4 weeks after she or he receives that information for this $7 million case, what the issues are. So the magistrate doesn't find out on the day you go to court. They know well and truly beforehand, and they have a really good idea of what's gone on, what the issues are, what the law might be in relation to it. It's not something new to them that they hear for the first time in evidence in chief or cross-examination when it comes to court. So that's really important. Before Casey comes on and tells us all about email, let's have a look at the big news of this week, and came out on Thursday afternoon. Dustin Martin has been accused of groping a topless lady in a bar in Victoria. Now, he hasn't been charged with sexual assault. That hasn't happened. There hasn't been any complaint about it. So someone's been in a strip club and they pulled out a phone and they filmed Dustin Martin handing the topless young lady a drink and then touching her inappropriately, it is suggested. I'm not saying that's the case. All right. There's been no complaint about it, and it's hit the news. Now, why has it hit the news? Well, Channel 7, Channel 9, they want you reading their newspaper and watching their news. All right. They want to make a big sensation out of anything they possibly can. So they've hyped it up and they've shown it and replayed it and said it's going viral on the internet and this, that, and the other. It's a very short video. It doesn't show anything beforehand or anything afterwards. And my firmest advice to you is never pull out a mobile phone in a strip club and start taking video. Because if security see you, your phone is going to be smashed and you probably won't be able to operate a phone for the next 10 months because all your fingers might be accidentally broken when you fall over when you are removed from the venue. Happens quite frequently. So what is the issue in relation to this? Well, for the AF, it's reputational risk. Our footballers are going out and doing this kind of behaviour and they're sensationalising it in the press, really without knowing the full facts and all that sort of thing. All the defence team have to say in this matter, if it did proceed and there was a complaint and it went ahead, well, where did the video come from? Who took that video? Any idea who took that video? And that's what will happen, and there won't be a problem. Okay, so it's sensationalised because it's a highly paid AFL star who's won a Brownlow medal. I actually met Dustin Martin in the Virgin Lounge of Melbourne Airport we made a toasted sandwich together, and he's the most polite, nice young gentleman I've ever met. Really nice guy. Anyway, that's just my opinion. So what are the issues? The league's relevant code is the respect and responsibility policy, which this year saw Jordan De Goey fined $25,000 after he bared the breast of a woman in a Bali nightclub. So it's like these footballers have got someone following them around and filming them when they get themselves into strife. So might be Essendon doing it or something like that. Who knows? Sorry, Bombers. Just off the cuff. Bombers have nothing to do with that. Here is the respect and responsibility policy. So that is your criteria. If you're the investigator in this matter, what you're looking for is, does what's been claimed in the press meet the criteria of our respect and responsibility policy? And this is their investigation process to support their investigation and their findings in it. So you can see that in the policy. Now, when you signed up for the AFL, right, with any AFL club, they're going to induct you and they're going to say, okay, all right, you're 18 years old, 17 years old. We want you to play footy with us. We want you to earn a lot of money. But there's a reputational risk that if we go around offending everybody, whatever, then people aren't going to watch footy anymore. All right. So we want you to be well behaved until you're 29 and you're retired and go and do what you like. So that will be in their policy and they all receive induction and training on it. Now, no one's mentioned Dustin's charitable work, his help with training young people, his support for all his other teammates. They just grab what's going to make you read the paper, and they sensationalise it. So that's where it's at. So forget Dustin. If someone accuses you of sexual assault in Victoria, here are the defences to it. They're coming.
Okay, so the defences to sexual assault in Victoria, this is how it works. For the accused to be found guilty of sexual assault, the prosecutor must prove the 4 elements of sexual assault. So the defences in relation to this are, number 1, consent. If the defendant can prove the complainant freely agreed to the touching that occurred at the time of the alleged incident, the defendant must be found not guilty. Consent can be given by the complainant in the form of words, non-verbal conduct, or a combination of both. The defendant must prove consent based on the facts and the evidence available. The court must also consider whether the accused held a reasonable belief of consent in doing so, so the court must assess the circumstances of the alleged defence. Did the accused take any steps to determine if the complainant was consenting or not? If reasonable steps were taken, this might help prove that the accused held a reasonable belief of consent and therefore not guilty. It was an honest and reliable mistake. Impossibility. This may be a valid legal defence in some sexual matters if the accused can prove that it's impossible for them to have intentionally touched the complainant in a sexual manner. This will negate any element of the offence and result in the accused being found not guilty. Medical exceptions. The accused does not commit sexual assault if the sexual touching is required to be done in the course of a procedure carried out in good faith for the medical or hygienic purposes. The defences in Victoria for a person who's been charged after a complainant has gone to the police for sexual assault.
Coming up in a minute, The Blind Investigator. His new book is coming on, and that's something really to look forward to, and you're all going to enjoy that. Just while I remember, Casey, we were whale watching on the Gold Coast.
Sorry?
2 weeks ago, we were whale watching on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
I was minding my own business, seasick and sitting in the behind the captain crying. And a bloke walked up to me and he's waving a mobile phone. It's got my picture on it. And he said to me, "Are you Mike Evans?" I thought, oh, here we go. I said, yeah. He said, 2 years ago in class, you cross-examined me in front of 20 other workmates. And I said, oh, really? You sure it was me? He said, yeah, it was you. And I said, how did it go? He said, oh, you embarrassed me in front of everyone. I said, oh, mate, look, I'm sorry. I was just trying to do some teaching. He said, no, it's really good. Last week, I went to court for the first time to be cross-examined. And everything you said and did to me in class, they did in court. And I knew what to expect. And as you and Pat and Casey was there as well, told us how to handle that, it was just a breeze. It was no surprise. And I knew what to say and what to do. So that was a really interesting thing that come out of whale watching. Good day, Eddie. How you going? That was 2 weeks ago. I just had to slip that in. Casey, what have you got for us today?
Yes, okay. I've briefly spoken about all of these tools, I think, in isolation before, and they've got more powerful in this time. I find that there's more information coming out. They've gathered more data, so I thought I would talk about them again, because when it comes to finding someone or finding information on them or pivot points in an investigation, email would have to be one of my favorites. So if I get a case that comes across my desk and there is no email, I will go out of my way to find the email to look for extra pivot points. So my favorite tools when it comes to looking up emails is, one is phonebook.cz. It's a fantastic tool. You can put in any domain name and it will bring up all of the email addresses that it has on that domain. So just as an example, I went to have a look at Ray White and it had heaps of email addresses that came up. So you can see prestige.palmbeach@raywhite.com. So these are all email addresses that are out there on the internet that the phonebook.cz has collected, and you can go through those. So if you know someone that works at Ray White and you don't have their email address, you can just put in the domain and it'll come up. Well, not necessarily every single time, but say it doesn't come up, a really fantastic thing to keep in mind. So say that you know that the person's name is John Smith and you met him at an open home last week and he was really fantastic. You can see that Ray White structures their emails by first name and last name with just a dot in between. So glenn.simon@raywhite.com. So you could put in john.smith@raywhite.com and give that a whirl to see if it is correct. So you can even use verify.io to verify that, which I haven't put in here, but you can use verify.io, put in the email address to see if it's a correct email address and then it's used. And just to show you like even more how powerful this is thanks, Tracy. I put in police.queensland.gov.au and hundreds of addresses come up. That was just a small snippet of the different email addresses that came up for the Queensland Police. So you can find out a lot of really good information using this, and it works really well with a lot of different domains. Sometimes you have to keep in mind, though, just an extra tip, is that when you go to a website, sometimes that website isn't necessarily what they're using as their email address. So, for example, even though the Australian Security Academy, we use australiansecurityacademy.edu.au as our email address, but it is the longest email address on earth. So some people with a long email address will shorten it to, for example, asa.edu.au. And you can easily find that if you go usually to a company's contact us page, it will have an email there and you will see that it's not the full long name, not the full web address, it's something else. So on the contact page, or you can just Google email Dun & Bradstreet, for example. If you just put that in and it'll bring up an email, and then you can see what domain to use to plug into phonebook.cz to bring up the emails for that. The other one I like to use is hunter.io. So sometimes they bring up different information than phonebook.cz. And as you can see, I put in police.queensland.gov.au again, and it's just that little bit clearer and it gives you the sources. So usually it's all open source intelligence. They're not breaking into any police databases and stealing information. It says that Yes, that's a good idea, Jamie. I will definitely do that. I'll do that, and I'll make that my segment for you next week, and we'll get you guys to email us and send you the link, send you the PDF of the tools. So, but as you can see with hunter.io, it'll show you the sources. So often, for example, if you went to police.qld.gov.au, if someone like Scott McLaren is looking for information, like please contact Scott McLaren, and this is his email address. It'll be on the website and it'll show you where they got that information from, or it might be in a PDF that is online that they've scraped the web and they've pulled that email address from a PDF. There is a lot of different places that they get this information from. And finally is one of my favorite tools. So once you have the email address, I use this all the time. The pivot points that come from this is just so fantastic. I love this tool, and it's EPOS. So if you put in an email address into EPOS, it gives you some information. So as usual, I'm going to dox myself. I've got my Gmail that I've had for many, many years. And you can see the information that this is brought up for my Gmail account, which I started, when I was in my early 20s. So I've had this so long. You can see that the last update was on the 31st of the 8th, 2022. So you know that I am still using this email address for things. It's got my picture there that it's pulled. This Google Maps link, if you open that up, it will show any reviews that I've given to Google. For example, if I went to a hairdresser and had a fantastic experience, I might review that, and you'll see that. That'll give you a location, which is really, really helpful. And also down here, it pulls information from, I have no idea how to say this, Holy, but it shows that this email address is associated with all these different websites. So I've had an Amazon account with this email address. I use it for my Discord. I still use it for my Discord. So when I'm playing computer games, I'm talking to my friends in Discord. Firefox.com, freelancer.com, iamgo.com, spotify.com, VRBro. Oh, that's Stays, the old Stays. So you can see that it's associated with so much, and they're all different pivot points that you can have a look into. And the other thing that it pulls up, which is always my massive favorite, is your Skype information. So as you can see here, this gives like a heap of pivot points. So it says that my name is Casey Pine, but the ID is also Casey.Evans, which obviously shows a maiden name. So that's another pivot point. And it says 86 at the end. Usually people don't have 86 as their favorite number. So what's the bet? That it's a birth year, another pivot point. And then also it says city, Gold Coast. So we have a location. Just from typing my email address into that tool, it has given you so much information on my birth year, my maiden name, the different websites that I've been associated with, so much information. So I find them really, really handy tools and fantastic for pivot points. That is my
information, Casey. They absolutely loved it. Well done. Okay, for those of you with a sharp eye, you might have noticed that my bow tie today has Scotch thistles on it, which is really relevant because Andy Chambers, who is Scottish, here with his best friend, pictured here with his best friend, is bringing out a new book. And I'm going to be telling you all about that in a minute, just after our last jobs for this week. So if you're looking for a job as an investigator, government investigator, private investigator, or corporate investigator, go to the Australian Security Academy's Australian Private Investigator, Corporate and Government Investigators Jobs Facebook page. You have to ask to join it. You have to answer 2 questions. Are you an Australian? Are you looking for a job? And if you do that, I will put you in there and you'll see lots and lots of jobs for private investigators, government investigators, corporate investigators, just like this one in South Australia that Pamela Booth is offering at the moment. She's looking for a factual investigator to undertake workplace investigations in Adelaide. So a South Australian, got a license, get in touch with Pamela. She's a lovely person, Pam is. She'll be quite happy to talk to you about your experience and the fact that you're licensed, and you won't work for a nicer person. I can tell you that. Lovely, Pam. Quantum Corp are looking for investigators in Sydney. Lifestyle Solutions looking for an internal investigator. Now, this is disability services. It'd be aged care too, I'm not sure, but you can see what that job's all about on our Facebook page if you go there and join it. 2 more jobs, then we're going to get to Andy's book. Here we go. Factional investigators in Tasmania, Launceston and Northeast Tas. I'm sure that's going to incorporate Devonport and Burnie as well. So Quantum Corp are looking for an investigator down there. There was a person down in Tasmania in court today for carrying a gun around Shorewell in Burnie and randomly shooting. Well, that's not unusual in Shorewell, it's commonplace. He was probably protecting himself with self-defence. So magistrate went off at the police for taking so long to sort that one out. Also down in Tasmania this week in news, a listening device was left running for 2 years in the prison. 2 years longer than it was supposed to. So there's a big fuffle about listening to people bragging about their sex life in prison on the phone in relation to what's been going on there. As they say, I'm not gay or nothing, it's just prison sex. Moving right along, here we go with Andy's book. Let's have a look at it.
Grab your private investigator coffee mug and get ready with a nice warm cup of hot chocolate to enjoy the Private Investigator bestseller book of the year from Andy Chambers, Private Investigator, Melbourne. Okay, in order to get Andy's book, Problem Solved, the stories from a blind private eye, you've got to Google bigskypublishing.com.au. And this website that's in front of you will come up and all their books are going to be there. And if you scroll down, you click on books, and you scroll through, or you can search, doesn't really matter. There it is. Problem Solved, The True Stories of a Blind Private Eye by Andrew Chambers. So what's it about? Problem Solved is a true crime memoir following the life of Andrew Chambers, who at the end of his career was known as the Blind Private Eye. The book is based on true stories that reveal the clandestine, funny and even confronting world of private investigations. Andrew worked in Australia and across the globe tackling varied and demanding jobs and shares stories about staking out unfaithful spouses, going undercover to investigate workplace harassment, investigating embezzlement, insurance fraud, cracking a Southeast Asian child prostitution ring and performing corporate espionage. In a fateful twist, Andrew also confronts the lifelong mystery as to why his parents gave him up for adoption, to discover the true nature of his beginnings. Problem Solved tells the story of Andrew's struggle with blindness and continued pursuit of his career, where surrounded by a strong team led by his son, Andrew repositioned himself as the Blind Private Eye. What a great read. So there's the book, bigskypublishing.com.au. It's this year's must-have Christmas present for every private investigator in Australia. I guarantee you'll enjoy having a read of that book. One of the great gentlemen of the investigation industry in Australia, Andrew Chambers.
Pass me a tissue. Gosh.
And the release date for that is the 12th of September. So it's not out yet. We're getting very close. It's 10 days until the release. So make sure you set it in your calendar, because I know I will be. I love when Australian books come out like this, because we don't have too many. And although there are similarities between Australian and overseas investigators, we still have a very specific way that we do things here. And yeah, I just love it when Australian investigators bring out things.
Yeah, if you want to read this book to help you go to sleep at night, it's just going to make you laugh. So it's probably read it in the morning, read it while you're sunbaking all summer. It will not bore you. $29.99. What was the release date, Casey?
The 12th of September.
Big Sky Publishing. You can find out all about Andy's great adventures and you'll never regret it. I think that's extremely good value. Other than that, you can do an Australian Security Academy course for $1,995. And there's a couple of parts in that Andy's contributed to. So there's something to look forward to. Been a very busy program today. We have covered a $7 million behind-the-scenes look at putting a case together. And we found that it all came down to one page. We've seen Casey's bonus tips and big promise next week to come back with everything in order. She's got nothing else to do. Tips. Well, we've actually got that document, Casey's best tips. It's just a matter of adding the last 6 weeks to it. So that's not going to be all that hard. We can sort that out. I think Casey might want to tidy it up a bit and give it proper headings. But that's there. We've looked at the matter of sexual assault in Victoria. No one has been charged over what we said. Okay, so today I've also shown you a photograph of Dustin Martin and that girl in the strip club, and I've also talked about prison sex. Get used to it, people. You're an investigator. What do you think you're going to investigate? You're not going to investigate puppy dogs, flowers, and niceness. Okay, so your moral high grounds out the window, your values, they don't matter. You're now listening to the person's story so you can do the investigation. We're Mike Evans and Casey Pine. We'll see you back next week with our episode 165 of Spy Curious. You have been watching episode 164 and haven't even got a picture of it. Oh dear, we'll bring it up next week. We're going out in our usual way.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
That's our mission complete. When you do go to a correctional facility to interview someone, it's really weird. What happens is they are really honest about what happened. They're probably more honest than most other people. They're paying for what they did. And they tell you, oh, look, I smoked a couple of cones. I drank 18 stubbies over the day. And I took this and I took that and whatever. And yeah, I went over the other side of the road and that was my fault. And they go through it really matter-of-factly, but they're paying for what they did. Some of them are incredibly honest. It's exactly the opposite of what you would expect. You are going to go into correctional facilities as a private investigator to interview people that the claim's made against, so they're a respondent, and you're going there to interview witnesses as well. So that's an interesting point. Might be somewhere you've never gone before. So something to look forward to as a private investigator. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, Cassie.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Good to see everyone again and good to be back.
Tips. See you next week, people. Thanks for watching.